Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Detour Live. I'm your host Dan Jones, as always, my four-time national road champion from Australia, John Trevorrow, the voice of cycling, Phil Liggett, and a special guest, former pro and now doctor, William Walker. Great to have you on the show, William. When we get guests on, we like talking about old memories. But does it give you a cold sweat when people want to talk about the Vuelta? You rode it obviously back in 2006.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. I was 20 at the time. I'd actually only signed professional with Rabobank halfway through that season, and it was just my third race as a pro. It was absolutely horrendous how exhausted I was halfway through the tour. I remember just hanging on for absolute dear life, and there was I think the second last mountain stage, I was dropped when I could see the hill, and that was still with about 150 kilometers to go. We hadn't even started the climb yet. And I had this director sportif that you might have heard of, Joop Zoetemelk, and he'd always been in the top 3 of any Grand Tour he started. And he just looked at me and said in Dutch, "Why don't you just put it into the big chain ring and catch up to the group ahead?" And I just thought, I can hardly think about walking up a set of stairs right now, let alone putting it in the big chain ring. So,
well, we've had you on the show before, and we're almost going to be like champions of not over racing these younger riders. But she's a different era now, mate. You've got 21-year-olds win the Tour de France, and if it all comes down to it, they manage them differently, but they've learned from the mistakes of what they did to poor old William Walker back in the early days.
Well, they have. That's the whole thing. They didn't throw someone in who's just having their third race as a pro who hasn't had the background and throw them into a Vuelta. That was terrible. There are other dickheads who did things like that, like me, but that was because that was my own bloody volition. It wasn't anyone pushing me to do it. But so what were your memories of that Vuelta? I mean, that's your terrible memory, but you must have had some fond memories of it as well, William.
A few fond memories. I think one of them was that we went there because Dennis Menchov was going to go for the overall, and when he wasn't doing too well in the race, I didn't have to ride on the front. So that was one fond memory. The second fond memory was my godfather's Spanish, and my dad flew over to see him, and they motorbiked up to the race to see us. So that was pretty cool. And then the third fond memory, which to be honest was making the time cut in the second last stage, which was the time trial, after missing the start of the time trial. I missed it by a minute and a half.
That sounds like an iffy story.
Yeah, I don't think I've really ever said that before. I just almost forgot it happened. But I was warming up so ferociously that I just was like, I'm going to go for a top 50 today in the time trial and really show everybody that, I've come out of this tour okay, and I missed the start. So,
oh, jeez. That would have been frightful. You always get those jitters when you miss your alarm in the morning, but that's next level.
Were you warming up out on the road, obviously, not on the train or any of the bus or anything like that? So you're out just riding on the circuit.
No, I was on the train.
You're on the train. Well, why didn't someone on the team grab you?
Oh, no idea.
Oh, you Zoetemelk. You should have known what was going on. Bloody hell.
I know.
Hey, Phil, what are your earliest memories of Will Walker? Because obviously Bay Crits, must start flooding back.
It's exactly that, Will. It's the Bay Crits. You remember when we were up in the park there in the Botanic Gardens in Geelong, and you were just excelling all over the place. We had the crowd on their toes screaming for you, and they were great moments, and there was a huge crowd. You became a hero overnight to me that day, and so it proved.
I think it might have been the first Amy's ride, or might have been on at that same time, because it was a huge crowd, probably one of the biggest crowds we ever had at the Bay Crits.
It was great.
And I remember it well because Will was up away alone, and then he got caught by one of the Pommy guys who was in the team's pursuit. I think gold medalist from the team pursuit later on, and I can't think of his name, and the two of you worked together, and he attacked you, and then you caught him and dropped him again, and managed to hold off a roaring bunch with Robbie McEwen raced back for second or third. But my favourite part of that was when you got up onto the stage and Phil Liggett said to you, how does it feel to beat Robbie McEwen? And you said, I'm happy just to meet him. And I thought, oh, that is sensational.
Wow.
Remember that, Will?
Oh, God. I mean, I've been a big Robbie McEwen fanboy from day dot. I mean, he's pretty much the coolest cyclist. And how good is it just listening to him commentate the Tour de France? I mean, he's just exceptional. So it's great that I get to remember that. And, just even getting to meet Phil was pretty massive back in those days as well. I mean, you were probably, in my eyes, more famous than Robbie McEwen as well. And I have to admit, when I'm having a bad day at the hospital and I'm realizing that I've still got a lot to learn in medicine, I every now and again go for a walk around the botanical gardens in Geelong and just remember the good old days when I was really good at something.
How is it all going? Because you have moved into the medical field. How's the progression?
Slow and steady. I think it just takes a long time, a lot of work, some patience, and I think it'll probably end up being 20 years before I'm really good in my profession. And it's a little bit different to cycling like that. Cycling, probably 4 or 5 years before you can start to get towards the top of your game. But then again, with Cadell, it nearly took him about 20 years to become a Tour de France winner too. So I think this time I'm not trying to, at all costs, become as good as possible as quickly. I'm just a little bit more patient. I've learned from the mistakes of the past about, pushing your body too much. So,
Well, we better talk about, obviously, the Vuelta España. We thought there was going to be fireworks yesterday. And how did you see the stage overall, Johnny?
It's funny. I think if you put the DeLorean and go back to last night when we were debating it with Henk Vogels, Henk felt that that Roglic would win the stage and they wouldn't let them get away. But I did think that the break might stay away because I thought, I don't think Jumbo-Visma really care about keeping this red jersey right now. And they weren't going to chase. None of the sprint teams were going to chase because the last 8K was too hard. So it was a funny old day, and it was virtually a pretty easy stage except for the final 8 kilometre climb. And the temperature which has been ridiculous in Spain up until yesterday, high 30s, was only mid-20s and actually was only about 7 or 8 degrees on top of the climb. So it was a very different day. A really strong group got away. And at one stage they had 9 minutes and into the latter part of the stage. But in the end, they chased it down, and I think it was only a minute 50 back to the, or minute 40 back to the group. But a really good day, and a fantastic winner. I mean, he's been around for a while. Alain Taramay is the right spelling, or Phil, you're better than me. Taramay, Estonian. And he's been, he first rode the Vuelta G, I think, round about your time. I reckon he might have been riding back when you did, Will. It might have been his first tour around about that time. And he was touted to be a superstar. He'd done really good rides in, he was national champion and good rides in world championships and finished 11th in the Tour de France. But and then he just sort of dropped away. He won a stage in the Giro, I think, in 2016. But he came back with a vengeance. He was very, very good yesterday.
Phil, it's not just the pressure of having the jersey and having to put riders on the front. A lot of these guys, they don't want to do the post-race interviews and the protocols that go with it. That obviously must be taxing on a rider with all the things they have to do as a requirement with the jersey.
Very much so. I mean, it's not like a racing car driver. Mentally, yes, he's going to be tired, but he's elated by victory, and he's quite prepared to give his interview because he's not getting up next morning and doing it all again. When you've ridden a tough stage like that, Taramay is an old hand of the game. It was 2009, by the way, his first Vuelta, John, and he got a stage win. and it's 10 years since he won a stage in the Vuelta. His last win actually was 6 years ago, and that was a stage of the Tour of Italy. He has won national championships, like five times the time trial champion of his country, but he's just a plugger. He's a guy that isn't afraid of a long, lone attack. I remember him up around Goulwa in Victor Harbor a few years ago when he rode, I think he only rode one Santos Tour Down Under, and he almost pulled off the stage, went into Victor Harbor. He was caught out on the peninsula there, or it is the Fleurier Peninsula, where they pulled him back over the hills approaching the finish. I think Taramay was pulled off a big one yesterday for himself as well, personally. That's why he was crying at the finish, because the team had got ripped apart by the team director sportif during the Tour de France for not trying hard enough. Well, they got their answer here at the Tour of Spain after only 3 days of racing. So he's an old hand, and he's got a big heart, and he never stops trying. And they gambled yesterday, but I think we see some great bike races this year. We've got the high-paid teams, a handful of them, and the rest are just earning a reasonable salary, but they're not afraid to attack anymore. And Ineos had a typical start to this Vuelta like they had for the Tour de France. They've had bad luck. They lost time. Carapaz cracked. I think Carapaz might be dropping into the ranks of the also-ran on the team in the next few days if he keeps this up. But they're still having a great season, but it's not working out for them in the Grand Tours. And Taramay took advantage of that. Okay, he should lead by the end of today's stage. It's reasonably flat by any standard. But once we get back in the mountains, he won't pull that stunt again, and the team won't be able to keep him in the red jersey. But I think our favourite is still Roglic.
Well, that's what I was meaning. Like, Roglic would be like, the fact that I don't have to have a week of all the extra commitments with the jersey, that's another element that they go, you know what, just take it. And the fact that he's only 30 seconds off, that's manageable if the form's good.
Yeah, I think he'd be very happy with the way it's going. Bit surprised on Seb Kuss having a bad day yesterday, because he usually rides on the shoulder of Roglic till the last seconds of the stage, but he fell away. These boys must be getting tired. It's been a very, not just the usual season, if you like, but it's been a very aggressive season. The bike races have been really exciting to watch. It's not been controlled by a big team this year, which I think is fabulous. And of course, the Olympics coming on the back of the Tour de France, and Ineos getting 2 gold medals, mountain biking and the road race, then both of those guys are in the Vuelta, and both are showing signs of tiredness. So I think we're in for a great 2.5 weeks that's left of the Vuelta for sure.
If you got one for you, Free Ranger says, after a big season, are Ineos expecting too much from Carapaz?
I reckon that Carapaz just been celebrating his gold medal performance, and I don't think he came here to go for the GC. I mean, he ran third in the Tour de France not that long ago, and he's won the Olympics. I think he's just here as support, and they're going to be a big chance, Ineos, in this tour, because I reckon Jumbo Visma showed some signs of cracking a bit yesterday. I mean, it's only day 3. You wouldn't have think that they'd be in that much trouble. It wasn't a hard day, except for the last climb. And you mentioned Sepp Kuss. You would think he'd be there, but none of the team were there. At the finish there, Roglic didn't have one rider within about a minute or 2 minutes of him. So that's a bit of a concern when we haven't even got to a real mountain stage yet. I think stage 9 is a ripper. I think stage 6 is fairly hard, but stage 9 is a real mountain stage. So it's going to be interesting because Ineos is very strong, as are Bahrain.
Right. The sheriff would have been happy that Landa had a good day. Because, geez, you don't want a couple of bad days with the sheriff in charge, because then the blood starts filling up in that vein and you get the stink eye.
Oh, Jack Haig didn't do was back a bit yesterday. So he's obviously there in a support role as well. So very strong team. So I reckon this is no lay down misère that Roglic's going to win this Vuelta. I think it's going to be a really good bike race come the third week. So
I've got a couple.
Yeah,
couple of questions for you, Will. McVilly Velo, that must be Vaughan. He says, Will, were you happy that the year you rode for Fuji Cerveto wasn't the year they changed the kit to Pooh Brown?
Actually, my brother raced my brother raced for the team the year after when they were poo brown. So I don't know. It wasn't that bad really. I've seen worse.
Yeah, but I've never
worse?
understood. You can pick any color. Obviously, it's got to align with the branding and that. But don't pick poo brown. It's never going to be a big seller. It's not going to fly off the shelves.
It's like
it was meant to be gold.
Gold. It's too risky. Stay out of the gold area altogether.
Yes.
Got another one for you from the Will Wizard. He says, congratulations on being a Dr. Will, and Zodomike as DS was not good. Will, I think you meant when you rode the Vuelta and Giro next year, were you too young?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for me, I was probably too young, but other young guys are doing it now and they're excelling and they're winning the Tour de France. So whether they're just more talented and they've got more resistance than I had, that could be a good answer. And realistically, I might have ended up having the same heart troubles whether I did it or not at that age. And so I'm pretty glad I got 2 Grand Tours in, and things might have been different if I did them later, but we also don't know that. So, I guess I've got lots of good, fond memories of suffering.
So when we say, or you say a lot, they manage it a lot better now. What does that actually mean? Like specifically, what are they doing differently to what they did 15 years ago?
Well, they're taking more notice of the data of where you are in at your fitness levels and all that sort of thing, how tired you are. So I disagree with a little bit from what Will was just saying in that we know how talented Will was. We never got to see what he could have done. He could have, he was being touted as the next Cadal and all that, which is a lot of pressure to put on a young man as well. You'd been up there and second in the under 23 Worlds, and you'd already been national champion at 19. I think you won the Australian Road title. So you're on that trajectory. They got you because of your talent. But you didn't just turn pro. It's your 3rd race with them, and they whack you into a Vuelta. They hadn't done any real testing of where you were at that point of the career, ready to jump into a 3-week Grand Tour, a monster thing. So you can come out of those things tired, or you can come out of them really, drained, and it starts to do a bit of damage. That's what I think.
Yeah, look, I won't go against you on that, right? At all, John. I think you're probably right. And when you talk about the managing riders, I mean, I think I got one phone call from the director sportif that was meant to be looking after me each year, and it was literally just like, "How's it going? Did you get your ticket for the plane trip?" And that was it. So there wasn't a lot of management going on back in those days.
So, Will, if you were running the show nowadays, right, particularly for young riders, how would you approach the race schedule and the plan? How much buy-in would you give a rider to their sort of schedule?
Well, I don't think riders necessarily need a lot of buy-in, because I think a young rider is always going to want to do more than they probably should. So I think it's about having somebody senior in management that really can say, well, I actually know you're going to be a rider for 10 or 15 years, and let's manage you accordingly. And I think, teams like Green Edge started doing that years ago, and it was about, delivering the riders to races like Tour of Belgium and stuff like that. And it's the same thing that Quick Step started doing with Remco, but then they did the complete opposite. After 8 months out of competition, they put him in his first race back at the Giro d'Italia. So I think, in my mind, that was a massive fail on their part, and we'll see what that does to his career. It might not have any influence at all, but I think it's about holding them back and telling them that it's good for their career, and still saying to them, look, we're still going to work towards these races in the future, but we're going to do it in the right way so that you don't overload the system.
What do you reckon, Phil?
Yeah, I think, what made you go into being a doctor, Will? Was it because of your heart condition? Did you suddenly think, I want to know more about this, and you fancied the way of life? Or what made you change and become a doctor?
Yeah, well, John and I talked about this before. To be honest, I had a go at making a comeback in cycling, and I was really struggling to find who I was after a career in professional cycling. If I'm honest, I tried a lot of things, and I just never felt comfortable. And I managed to work my way into a health condition that just kept getting worse. And I was lying in hospital, and I really wasn't healthy at all. And I just had to find a way out from the bottom of from a big hole that I was in. I thought, you know what, I'm in a hospital. Why don't I think about trying to become a doctor? And of course, through all of the medical issues with my heart that I had, I was genuinely interested. And I wanted a massive challenge, a similar challenge to winning the Tour de France. And I thought, why not try and put all those things together and do something that, keeps you interested for life. You get to look after patients and really care for people and make a change to their life. But I'd be lying if I said that, for me, part of medicine is replacing that part of cycling that I lost, which was, a competition, a real lifelong challenge, and something that you've got to dedicate a lot of your waking hours towards.
Obviously being in that field, is there a lot of stress around the current situation with the pandemic? You look at what's going on in the UK, and there's obviously a lot more vaccinations and so forth, but is it frustrating being in that industry and having a deeper knowledge of what could go badly wrong if we just open the too quick? But on the flip side, you've got the other arguments about, take your time because, businesses obviously need to open and so forth. What's the general consensus at the moment?
I think there's differing perspective. There's a lot of doctors, and they're the ones that you hear from in the media. They're really keen to keep everything locked down until we get vaccination rates up to 80%. But my gut feeling is that even once we do hit vaccination rates of 80%, there are still going to be problems with the virus. And I think, there probably is a balance that could be better about starting to just open up slowly and start to realize that the virus is here to stay, like it is in Europe, and start to give businesses some freedom so that there's not as much of an economic cost to Australia. And I think regardless, even if they didn't do anything differently, the thing that frustrates me is we've got so much emphasis on one area of health being the virus right now. I just feel like if we started to talk about some of the bigger issues, or some of the other big issues in health, type 2 diabetes, obesity, some of these things that are really preventable, as well as gambling and mental health, if we put a lot of our efforts towards that, and some of the money that we're putting towards coronavirus in towards those areas of health, we might also have some really good benefits to society. So, I mean, I've got a little frustration that I think this is really great that we're putting so much effort into this, but I just want to make sure that, going forward, we can tackle this and then start to tackle some of the other important areas in our healthcare.
Well, it is different seeing these scenes of the Vuelta, and you see all the crowds, and you see, life starting to return to normal. Yet in Australia, there is a real big battle going on, particularly with mental health. Like this is a crossroad for a lot of Australia, because we've been through so many lockdowns, and now, we've got the curfews and that. It's really hard with that mental health side of things to keep pushing forward and to keep positive and so forth. I think the messaging as well, when they do announce these lockdowns, it's got to be, don't be reactive all the time. Talk about the mental health stuff straight off the bat, so that people are aware that there are resources out there. You can get help if needed, but it seems a bit like they make a call and then people react. But anyway, we're going down a bit of a COVID rabbit hole. Colin Morley says, John's Detour podcast episode with Will 2 or so years ago, I think it was about a year ago, is outstanding and worth listening to. That was a fantastic episode. So that goes through, your career and some of the things that happened. So if you want to jump on and have a listen to that, that's definitely worth doing. And McVilly has come back again and said, how good was Grabowski? And tell us the story of the 2005 Worlds.
Oh, so I'm getting a lot of attention. I've got Phil Liggett here, and I'm doing more microphone than him.
Tell me about Grabowski. Who was he?
Yeah. So Grabowski in my day was this, young. I think he was from Ukraine. He just was winning a lot of races, and we rocked up to the Worlds, and we were a pretty strong outfit coming from the Rabobank Continental team. We had a lot of guys that could have potentially won the Worlds in Madrid that year. And he just went away from the start. We never saw him. I mean, he was just so much stronger than everybody else. I mean, I didn't get to go head-to-head with him on the final climb or anything because he was probably already 2.5 minutes ahead. But he's got a sad fate as well. I mean, I can't remember exactly, but he ended up having a really similar fate to me with cardiac issues and some depression as well. And he ended up passing away, or I can't remember exactly what happened. So it's quite sad.
What was his first name? Was it Dimitri?
Dimitri, yeah.
It was. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he won that Worlds, and you ran second, if I remember rightly well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a pretty special performance. But yeah, we'll have to Google that, because I do remember there was something pretty sad about that. But we'll have to Google. One of our many listeners will jump on and tell us exactly what happened to him. Probably
Will Wizard.
Yeah, no, or Vaughan. I reckon.
Come on, Will Wizard. Where are you when we need you?
Exactly. Hey, fellas, why don't we have a quick word from Bike Exchange and the Amy Gillett Foundation? When we come back, we'll have a look at the profile for stage 4, try and make some bold predictions. And I've sent out the link to Julian Dean. He's en route to the start. He may or may not jump on by the end of the show. So plenty more to come on the detour, hopefully. Fingers crossed, and hopefully his Wi-Fi is good. But here's a quick word from our great mates at Bike Exchange and Amy Gillett Foundation.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match, but not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Life is like a two-way street. It's about consideration and mutual respect. Roads are much the same. However you get around, walk, ride or drive, if we share our roads, we can all be safer. The Amy Gillett Foundation is Australia's peak cycling safety charity. Our mission is for safe cycling in Australia. Our vision is for 0 cyclist deaths. Over the last year, we've seen an enormous increase in people taking up cycling, whether it be for recreation, with the family, commuting, or even to start your own cycling career. We need to do more to make it safer for every cyclist. 20 cyclists every day are hospitalised, and 1 cyclist is killed every 10 days on Australian roads. So, the next time you jump on your bike or hop in your car, remember to practice the 4 C's. Be courteous, calm, considerate and conscientious. Every cyclist death is preventable, and we all deserve to get home safely. Please donate to help the Amy Gillett Foundation make the roads safer for you and for me.
Thanks again to our great mates at Bike Exchange, and some great messaging there from the Amy Gillett Foundation, and even better voiceover work by the fabulous Phil Liggett. So if he's stage 4, it looks like one on paper that could be right up the alley of Michael Matthews, because the research says there's a bit of a kicker at the final there. 400 metres, they're saying it's 5%, but the Velo Viewer is saying possibly 6%. The harder the better for Blin.
It's got Michael Matthews' name written all over it. All right, he is my pick.
Not biased on this show at all.
That was one of the best sprints he's put up a couple of days ago when he ran third to Phillipson and Jacobson, who are quicker than him. on the flat. But you could finish like this, just like in stage 2 of the Tour de France, when he was so good up the hill there. A fantastic second place. He can win. He's my pick to win tonight's stage.
What do you think, Phil?
I can't argue with John on this occasion. This is a perfect Michael Matthews finish. He's a strong boy. He's not quite as fast as the twitch fibers on somebody like Philipsen on a flat finish, but put him pure strength. Michael is the boy. He's an under-23 World Road Race champion, which was run on the slopes of Geelong, coming up the main street there, Murrumbul. So he's got the strength for that sort of finish, and I think he is the man to beat today. But hey, I know we got stage 1 prediction right. We got stage 2 right with Philipsen, because I told you that's why he finished last in the time trial, so he could win the sprint the next day in the road race. Nobody would have guessed yesterday's winner. Brilliantly taken by Talamay. But I reckon we've got it right today, John. In fact, if we're right today, I'm not coming back on the show.
Ever.
I can't keep doing it. Just can't keep doing it.
Well, you might as well throw your hat in the ring, William. What do you think is going to happen?
It's hard because on that final, it's hard to really figure out the profile, how hard it really is. That I'd love to see that last kilometre exactly, because there it looks like it only goes up about 75 metres over a couple of K. So, if it's not as hard as possible, somebody like Demar could win or Philipsen. So, but I mean, obviously we want to see Matthews win. But I think it will be a sprint finish, especially with the leader now being from a small team. They'll want to protect that jersey at all costs. So that'll mean, we get to tune in and see a sprint finish.
It's definitely going to be interesting.
I've got a feeling, that Talamay could keep this jersey for quite a while, because he's not a bad climber. He actually climbs quite well. He finished 11th in the Tour de France, remember. So he's and I don't think Roglic will be that keen to get it back in a hurry. The last week is a monster week. It's really tough. But he could keep this for a week or so.
Hey, in other random news, it just popped in my head. Have you been watching Australian Survivor, William? How good? Baden Cook obviously is on Survivor. Did you watch last night's episode?
To be honest, I'm more I'm probably better to talk about the analysis of Survivor than the Vuelta at the moment.
Let's go. We can go down a rabbit hole. Apologies to our international
I'm a big Cookie fan. I've got to admit, he's just been exceptional from the start, and I'm glad he got given a second chance, I think, because they like him. But he's been a really good team builder. He's been great in the challenges. He speaks well. We always see that old Cookie when he was winning the green jersey, that kind of that flair that he had. But I have to admit that the skills that he's got from being in a cycling team and being a leader and being a teammate, I mean, they really just come through on Survivor. He has just not put a foot wrong. He's got a lot of skills there that are really impressive. So
he's a great poker player. So he's always reading people. And in the early days, like I was watching his face, and how Cookie's eyes open up, and he's just scanned like bloody RoboCop, and he's just analyzing the game. And then for the people overseas that can't watch it, VPN Channel 10 Australian Survivor, and you'll be able to see some episodes with 2003 green jersey winner. But he got voted off last night, and we were spewing, watching the TV, and we're like, oh, no, he's done. Oh, I'm not going to watch the rest of this. This is crap. And then he goes to walk after, put his candle out. It was a weird challenge, because 3 people won immunity, and then they had to build a fire, and whoever won got to vote 1 vote, and they voted out. And they wanted Cookie out because they know he's too strong. He's a threat. Get rid of him. So as he's walking off, I'm going, I almost kicked the TV over. There's a screen that says, hey, your game's not over yet. Go walk down to Redemption Rock and, work out a way on how you can get back in. Cookie just goes, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So he's back.
You have to admit, he's shown a lot of integrity too, because he hasn't ever sold anybody out for his own game.
No.
And everybody on Survivor sells everybody else out. So, and there was one character called George who's particularly flamboyant and a little bit, eccentric. And Cookie was the guy that really backed him and found his qualities and helped them win a challenge, because he's like, no, listen to George when nobody else wanted to. So I'm a massive fan. He's absolutely smashing it.
What are we going to ask Phil?
What time is it on? Because I can watch it on VPN.
So Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday nights at 7:30 p.m. Aussie time. So that's why we're gonna keep this episode short and sharp, because Survivor starts in 24 minutes. But it's been fascinating. Yeah, jump on and watch it in 24 minutes time. Watch Cookie.
Okay.
I missed last night. I missed Cookie. The part I love, because I reckon George is just hilarious. But early on, before Cookie decided to jump on George's wagon, when he asked him why he put his hand up to go for a challenge, which would have been hopeless.
Oh yeah,
and he tried to. He said, "You're delusional, delusional." And I thought that's sensational.
Oh yeah,
I'll jump on board with this bloke. Anyway, what were we having a laugh? I know we talked about it. Sorry, mate. Go on. Well,
I've got it. Just that moment reminded me of a line. I think it was in the 2002 or 2003 Tour de France. He goes, I think the Pataki had won the stage, and Cookie's been suffering for all of the climbs, and there was a little bit of talk around Pataki getting pushed over some of the mountains to get there, and Cookie goes, it's like getting pushing Sean Eady to the finish. Of course he's going to smash you at the end, and I just thought that's brilliant.
What were you going to say, Evie?
No, it's just we're laughing about stuff, and I know we spoke about it when we did the in-depth interview with Will a couple of years ago, but whenever it was. But I still vividly remember when Will won the Australian road title in Adelaide. He was only a kid, 19, 20 maybe, and he won the under 20, and it changed the rule of Australian cycling, because at that young age he won the under 23 title and the senior title, because they just used to put the under 23s into the main race, and so he won it overall, which was wonderful. And I remember you finished, surprised everyone, and you're sitting just before the presentation, you're sitting on the tailgate of a wagon just getting changed, and I walked over and said, "Great ride, Will." You turned around and you said, "Yep, I reckon this will get me start money in the next Bay Crits." What a great line. I love that line.
It's a great line, because you gave the Bay Crits yet another plug, John.
Of course.
Another shameless plug.
Quite right, too. Quite right, too.
Hey, before we wrap things up, John, have we had anyone put in a bid for the silent auction? Now, for those of you that don't know, I want to talk about what the prize is. It's 5 nights in a waterfront villa, breakfast and dinner at the fantastic Amilla Resorts in the Maldives. I'll just play a short little 30-second clip to really get you in the mood to put in a bid. This is a quick clip from the guys at Amilla. Yeah, fantastic. And if you want to have a look, if you're listening to this, go to Amilla, AMILLA.com. Check out their website. You'll get all the images there. And if you do want to put in a bid, just email john@cyclingevents.com.au. Johnny, have we had a bid?
We have our first bid. I think it's almost too low to even announce, but we'll announce it because this person's starting low. I think he's prepared to go up a little, but it's $2,000 Australian.
Yep.
So that's the first bid that's come through. And I will admit it's one of my dad's army cycling crew. That's all I can say. Because I was out on the ride this morning and they all were buzzing me on it because they're all followers of the detour. And so this guy said, right, I'll start with $2,000. I said, well, you won't get it for that. I said, well, got to start somewhere. And he's right. He's right. It
and
started.
it's worth over 13,500 Aussie dollars. So that's a bargain. It's like the old castle. Tell him he's dreaming.
So it's going to run right through the Vuelta. On the final day of the Vuelta, we will announce the highest bid, and then Amelia Resorts will send through a voucher for the whole thing, and you'll get an invoice direct from Kareka Foundation from Lindy, and that'll be sensational.
And of course, it's to raise money for the Kareka Foundation, KARIEGA.coz.za/Peloton. Join Phil's Peloton, get involved. It's a great cause, and we've mentioned a few times throughout the Tour de France. Like everywhere else, they're really struggling with the COVID and the inability to have tourists, which is a big part of their revenue, and it's just been cut off. So without the support from fantastic viewers like yourselves, they really struggle. So any donation is important, and if you want to have a bid on that prize, make sure you do, because we really hope that it goes for good money, Iffy.
I'm sure it will.
Yep.
And it's really drastically needed, as Lindy and Phil have been explaining to us. With the whole worldwide pandemic, there are no visitors, so there is no income for the park to be able to pay the staff who look after the animals and have done a fantastic job of virtually saving the rhinos in that area because of the poachers and what was happening. So it's a fantastic opportunity. Also, I haven't. I'm going to spring this one on you, Dan. You don't know about this yet, but
just wipe the sweat.
Looking at Dan's face.
It makes me nervous.
We might get Will involved in this one as well. I'll get an e-bike for you, Dan, because I know
yes,
you're able to ride around, and he's only doing a little bit of cycling at the moment, but we might get him on board.
E-bike.
We've been talking about the wonderful Amy Gillett Great Ocean Road Grand Fondo, which is on later in the year, end of October, November. I think I've got the dates. I've got them there somewhere.
End of October.
Yep. It's a wonderful day down at Lawn. Fantastic circuit, but there's different distances for everyone. Hi, Trish. For those watching who are not watching on the YouTube, who are listening to the Detour podcast, that was Trish Liggett sticking her head in the background. But anyway, but what I'm going to do, we're going to have a Detour bunch. So anyone who is a Detour listener, whatever, who wants to do, who enters for the Amy Gillett Grand Fondo, for the Great Australian Grand Fondo, we're going to have a special breakfast, catch up before the start, and ride together in a group. I'm going to do the big one, 100.
I'll do it on an e-bike. No worries.
Yeah.
Crank it up to 60.
Yeah, big fluffy seat where you don't get a sore bum.
Yeah, for sure. I don't care.
But it'll be sensational. We'll try and drag you down to that as well. It'll be a really, really good day.
Well, we need a doctor. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah. You can sign me up, John. And I think this year I'd like to raise some money for the Amy Gillett Foundation as well, because it's just such a fantastic cause.
Yeah.
And I might know someone who can get us some kit, John. Someone I know it does some custom kit. We might be able to get some custom kit done for the day.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right.
Now, there is you realise, Will, that you now have a similarity with Phil. You used to look up to Phil Liggett. You still do, the voice of cycling. But he is also a doctor. I was there when he was made a doctor.
That's right.
At
Dr. Phil.
You've got
Dr. Phil meets Dr. Will.
Yeah, Dr. Phil and Dr. Will. That's what we should have called the episode.
Yes, I think we will.
I'll rename it.
We might.
Dr. Will.
No, that's a real honour.
No, that was an amazing ceremony in South Australia when the university gave me a doctorate last year. But I've not been back to Australia since because of COVID, of course, which is a great sadness.
Mate, you'll get back. You'll get back.
Well, I hope so.
Both of you can use that line. You can legally use that line. Trust me, I'm a doctor. You can both do it.
Well, put it this way, Phil. The amount of bloody plugs John has done for the Bay Classic on this program, when it does open up, it'll be back bigger than ever. It has
It'll be
to.
wonderful. It'll be
has
wonderful.
to.
Can't wait to get back to Williamstown, Geelong,
All right.
and Esplanade. Yeah.
Before we wrap, here's a couple of quick comments. The Will Wizard says Grabowski died of a heart attack in 2017 in Israel. He's 32 years old. Vili Velo again says Taramo is a classic climber, third in the Mont Ventoux Challenge 2019. He will hang on to the jersey for a while.
Yep.
Dale Simmons says Jay McCarthy riding with the Sagan boys the other day. We thinking another DE signing. That's interesting. Because we haven't heard about Jay McCartney for a while because he had that really bad crash last year and was out of a contract this year. But he won the Cadell Evans. He had a stellar year a couple of years ago. Won the Great Ocean Road Race.
He's a classy bike rider, and it was a real shame. He got just when his contract was up for renewal, he had his injury, and it was just it all went pear-shaped, as they say. But it'd be fantastic for him to get back into the pro peloton where he should be.
Great guy too. Free Ranger says the Detour delegation. That's got a good ring to it.
I like it.
Chris Peters goes, how long is your extension cord, Dad? I think he's referring to that. That's been up since Christmas a couple of years ago. I just couldn't be asked taking it down. And you can turn the lights on. So, no, why not? And Darren Spiteri says, are you going to get some jerseys made up for it? Yes, we will. I know a guy that is
Spitzy. We'll get Spitzy on. Spitzy will go too hard, but anyway.
Yeah. No, we'll get some jerseys, and then we'll talk to the Amy Giller Foundation and see if we can raise some money through the jerseys. So,
that sounds a great idea. We've got I think we know someone in there. We'll get
I think we do.
Katie on board.
I think we've got a few contacts, John, finally. It's all starting to pay off. But anything you want to add before we go, Iffy?
Oh, look, I'd just like to thank the two doctors, Dr. Phil and Dr. Will, for being a part of the show. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a real fun episode. Will, you're only just down the road. We now and again exchange texts, see how each other's going, but we're going to have to catch up, if not for a pedal, at least for a coffee very, very soon.
Sounds
so
good.
Luck, Will, in your career, because that's a great direction, I must say. Well done.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable story, mate. Unbelievable. The fact that you've just taken on the challenge and kicking goals post height. Yes, John.
I meant to bring it up earlier, but I just wanted to congratulate Chloe Hosking, who won the first stage Tour of Norway in the weekend. She had a terrible year with COVID. She'd been 4.5 months off the bike with COVID, and to come back and win the final stage. Annemiek van Vleuten won the overall, but a fantastic ride by Chloe. So
we'll get her on the show and have a chat. Yeah,
and of course she former winner of the Bay Crits. So
you had to ruin it. Jeez, every time.
We must talk about the Bay Crits more often, I feel.
Oh, no. Just shameless. YouTube.com/the Bay Crit. Sorry, now, the Detour podcast. Make sure you get involved, like, share, subscribe. Thanks again to the two doctors for being on the show. What do you want to say, John?
You were going to bring that up at the start of the show.
That's correct.
Remember?
And I forgot. But we move forward because that's what we do on the Detour, mate. Learn from your mistakes and don't repeat them. So, hey, thanks again, boys, for joining the show. We'll see you again tomorrow. Now, before I do go, I think, John, I'm going to have to record the show at 7:30 tomorrow night from here because I won't be home at 6:30. So, actually, I probably should have this conversation off air, but we'll let people know.
I thought you were going to call here and do it from here.
Nah, restrictions. I can't.
No, there's no restrictions here.
Yes, but I'll do it. I'd prefer to do it from Melbourne. I think it's going to be. I'm just straight in, straight out.
Better sound.
You heard it first here. 7:30. So
7:30 tomorrow night. Straight into Standard Time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And Survivor's not on, so it doesn't matter. And Survivor's about to start in 10 minutes. So priorities. Enjoy Survivor, folks. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks again to the two doctors, Phil and Will. See you guys.
This is the winning